The following is the chronology of the French Revolution. Events preceding but pertinent to the French Revolution. Throughout the era, the centuries-old opposition of privileged bodies and castes to royal absolutism. The Enlightenment leads many European writers to criticize the absolute monarchy and espouse democratic, liberalist, nationalist, and socialist ideas. The power of the French nobility erodes with the emergence of a powerful bourgeoisie. Wars compound the debt situation and increase taxation. Food shortages occur due to poor harvests, economic deregulation and market manipulations. Ascension of Louis XVI amid financial crisis. 1774 May 10. Louis XVI, age 19, ascends to the throne as the state nears bankruptcy. Summer. Poor grain harvests for the second year in a row raise the price of bread by winter. August 24. Louis dismisses his minister Malpiau, who tried to reform the provincial parlements, which were the spearheads of the aristocracy's resistance to the crown's absolutism and centralization efforts. August 24. Louis appoints Saint-Robert Jacques Turgot as Controller General of the Finances. He notably liberalized grain commerce, which resulted in an increase in bread prices. 1775 April 18th. Due to an increase in grain prices, bread riots known as the Flour War begin in Dijon and spread. May 2–3. Flour War rebels demonstrate in front of the Palace of Versailles. May 6. Government Minister Guillaume Chrétien de Lamoignon de Malesherbes advocates calling on Estates General to end the crisis. May 11. By a combination of repressive measures and aid, Turgot puts down most of the bread riots. 1776 January. Turgot presents his 6 edicts calling for the abolition of privilege and the taxation of all social classes. May 11. Turgot is dismissed after having made powerful enemies with his edicts and other policies. October. Jacques Necker is appointed Director General of the Finances. He opposes the deregulation of the grain market implemented by Turgot and stabilizes the social and financial situation in France. 1778 February 6. After years of unofficial support, France formally recognizes the United States, dragging it into a war which would further increase France's debt. 1781 February. Necker publishes the Compte Rendu au Roi, a book explaining government finances in a way that, for the first time, generates public interest in the subject. May 19. Necker resigns, unable to implement his reforms and forced out by a coalition of enemies gathering princes of the blood, financiers, provincial parliaments and the Firme Générale. 1783 November 3. Charles-Alexandre de Calonne is appointed as a compromise between Turgot's liberalism and Necker's dirigism. 1785 October. Calonne, failing to end the financial crisis with credit and loans, attempts monetary reforms. Assembly of Notables. 1786 May 31. The Diamond Necklace affair concludes with the acquittal of Cardinal Rohan and the discrediting of Marie Antoinette. August 20. Calonne informs Louis that the royal finances are insolvent and proposes a new tax code. December 29. The Assembly of Notables, organized by Calonne to endorse his proposals, is convoked. 1787 February 22. First Assembly of Notables meets against a background of state financial instability and general resistance by the nobility to an imposition of taxes and fiscal reforms. March. Calonne's publication of his proposals and the intransigence of the notables leads to a public clash and impasse. April 8. Louis dismisses both Calonne and the Keeper of the Seals, or Minister of Justice, Miromes Neil, in an attempt to break the impasse. April 13. Louis appoints Lamoignon Keeper of the Seals. April 30. The Archbishop of Toulouse and vocal leader of the higher clergy, Loménie de Brienne, is appointed Chief Minister of State. May 25. The First Assembly of Notables is dissolved. June. Brienne sends edicts for tax reform legislation to the parlements for registration. July 2. Parliament of Paris overwhelmingly rejects the royal legislation. August 6. Legislation is passed at a lit de justice. Subsequently, the Parliament declares the registration illegal. Supported by public opinion, it initiates criminal proceedings against the disgraced Calonne. August 15. Louis dismisses the Parisian Parliament and orders the parlementaires to remove themselves to Troyes. August 19. Louis orders the closure of all political clubs in Paris. September. Civil unrest in the Dutch Republic leads to its invasion by the Prussian army, and increases tensions in Paris. Brienne backs down with his legislative demands, settling for an extension of the vingtieme tax, and the parlementaires are allowed to return to Paris. November 19. A royal session of the Paris Parliament for registration of new loans turns into an informal lit de justice when Louis doesn't allow a vote to be taken. November 20. The vocal opposition of the Duc d'Orléans leads to his temporary exile by lettre de cachet, and the arrest and imprisonment of 2 magistrates. 1788 May 6. Orders for the arrest of 2 Parisian parlementaires, Depremesnil and Goeslard, who are most implacably opposed to the government reforms, are issued. The Parliament declares its solidarity with the 2 magistrates. May 7. Depremesnil and Goeslard are imprisoned. May 8. Judicial reforms partly abolishing the power of parliaments to review legislation are forced through the parliaments by Lamoignon in a lit de justice. Time to coincide with military sessions. June 7. Day of the Tiles in Grenoble, a meeting called to assemble a parliament in defiance of government order put down by soldiers. June. Outcry over the enforced reforms ensues, and courts across France refuse to sit. July 5. Brienne begins to consider calling an Estates General. July 21. Meeting of the Estates of Dauphiné, known as the Assembly of Isola and led by Jean-Joseph Mounier, to elect deputies to the Estates General, adopts measures to increase the influence of the Third Estate. August 8. After being informed that the royal treasury is empty, Brienne sets May 1, 1789 as the date for the Estates General in an attempt to restore confidence with his creditors. August 16. Repayments on government loans stop, and the French government effectively declares bankruptcy. August 25. Brienne resigns as Minister of Finance, and is replaced by the favoured choice among the Third Estate, Jacques Necker. September. Necker releases those arrested for criticising Brienne's ministry, leading to a proliferation of political pamphlets. September 14. Malesherbes resigns. November 6. Necker convenes a second Assembly of Notables to discuss the Estates General. December 12. The Second Assembly of Notables is dismissed, having firmly refused to consider doubling the representation of the Third Estate. December 27. Prompted by public controversy, Necker announces that the representation of the Third Estate will be doubled, and that nobles and clergymen will be able to stand for the same cause. 1789 January, Emmanuel Joseph Sieyès publishes What is the Third Estate? April 28. The Rabaron riots in Paris, caused by low wages and food shortages, lead to about 25 deaths by troops. May 5. The Estates General meets for the first time since 1614. Estates General and Constituent Assembly. May 5. Meeting of the Estates General, voting to be by estate, not by head. May 28. The Third Estate begins to meet on its own, calling themselves communes. June 4. The Dauphin of France dies. June 9. The Third Estate votes for the common verification of credentials, in opposition to the First Estate and the Second Estate. June 13. Some priests from the First Estate choose to join the Third Estate. June 17. The Third Estate declares itself to be the National Assembly. June 20. Third Estate, National Assembly are locked out of meeting houses. The Third Estate chooses to continue thinking King Louis XVI has locked them out and decides upon a declarative vow, known as the Serment au jeu de paume, not to dissolve until the Constitution has been established. June 22. National Assembly meets in Church of St. Louis, joined by a majority of clergy. June 23. Two companies of French Guards mutiny in the face of public unrest. Louis XVI holds a séance royale, puts forward his 35-point program aimed at allowing the continuation of the three estates. June 24. 48 nobles, headed by the Duke of Orleans, side with the Third Estate. A significant number of the clergy follow their example. June 27. Louis recognizes the validity of the National Assembly, and orders the First and Second Estates to join the Third. June 30. Large crowd storms Left Bank prison and frees mutinous French guards. July 1. Louis recruits more troops, among them many foreign mercenaries. July 9. National Assembly reconstitutes itself as National Constituent Assembly. July 11. Necker dismissed by Louis. Populace sack the monasteries, ransack aristocrats' homes in search of food and weapons. The king has the royal army under the Duc de Broglie surround Paris. Lafayette presents a draft of the Declaration of the Rights of Man of the Citizen to the Assembly, written by himself in consultation with Thomas Jefferson. July 12. Camille Desmoulins announces the dismissal of Necker to the Paris crowd, incites crowd to take up arms against foreign mercenaries. The Carl Eugene, Prince von Lothringen and Lamasque appears at the Tuileries with an armed guard. A soldier and civilian are killed. July 13. National Guard formed in Paris, of middle-class men. July 14. Storming of the Bastille, Delaunay, Foulin and de Flesselles, amongst others, are massacred. July 15. Lafayette appointed Commandante of the National Guard. July 16. Necker recalled, troops pulled out of Paris. July 17. The beginning of the Great Fear, the peasantry revolt against feudalism and a number of urban disturbances and revolts. Many members of the aristocracy flee Paris to become émigrés. Louis XVI accepts the tricolour cockade. July 18. Publication of Desmoulins à la France Libre favouring a republic and arguing that revolutionary violence is justified. August 4. Surrender of feudal rights, the August Decrees. August 26. The Assembly adopts the Declaration of the Rights of Man of the Citizen. September. Desmoulins publishes Discours de la Lanterne aux Parisiens, a hard-edged radical pamphlet celebrating political violence and exalting the Parisian mob. September 11. The National Assembly grants suspensive veto to Louis XVI. Louis fails to ratify the August Acts of the National Assembly. October 2. Louis XVI rejects the declaration. October 5–6. Outbreak of the Paris mob, liberal monarchical constitution, the Women's March on Versailles. October 6. Louis XVI agrees to ratify the August Decrees. Palace of Versailles stormed. King Louis and the National Assembly removed to Paris. November 2. Church property nationalized and otherwise expropriated. November 1. Publication of Desmoulins, a weekly histoire des révolutions, savagely attacking royalists, aristocrats, even former friends, sometimes drawing lawsuits. November. Moderate group, called the Société des Amis de la Révolution de Paris formed by Mirabeau. December. National Assembly distinguishes between active and passive citizens. Only the active could vote. December 12. Assignats are used as legal tender. 1790 January. Former provinces of France replaced by new administrative departments. January. Jean-Paul Marat moves to the radical Cordeliers section. The Club des Cordeliers was nearly arrested for his aggressive campaign against Lafayette. and was forced to flee to London, where he wrote his Dénonciation contre Necker, an attack on Louis XVI as a popular finance minister. February 13th. Suppression of monastic vows and religious orders. March 5th. Feudal Committee reports back to National Assembly, delaying the abolition of feudalism. March 29th. Pope Pius condemns the Declaration of the Rights of Man in secret consistory. May. National Assembly renounces involvement in wars of conquest. May. Marat returns to Paris. May 12th. Lafayette and Jean-Sylvain Bailly institute the Society of 1789. June 19th. Nobility abolished by the National Assembly. July 12th. The Civil Constitution of the Clergy demands priests to take an oath of loyalty to the state, splitting the clergy between juring and non-juring priests. July. Growing power of the clubs. July. Reorganization of Paris. July 14th. Before a huge assembly at what came to be known as the Fête de la Fédération, Lafayette took the civic oath on the Champs de Mars, vowing to be ever faithful to the nation, to the law, and to the king, to support with our utmost power the constitution decreed by the National Assembly, and accepted by the king. This oath was taken by his troops, as well as the king. August 16th. The parlements are abolished. September. First edition of radical newspaper Le Père Duchesne, printed by Jacques Hébert. September. Fall of Necker. December 6th. National Assembly passes a decree stating that only active citizens could serve on the National Guard, due to an article of the Electoral Law of October, 1789. Only persons whose annual tax amounted to the equivalent of 3 days' work were recognized as active citizens, restricting the right to bear arms to the middle and upper classes. Maximilien Robespierre delivers speech opposing the decree. 1791 January 1st. Mirabeau elected President of the Assembly. February 28th. Day of Daggers. Lafayette orders the arrest of 400 armed aristocrats at the Tuileries Palace. March 2nd. Abolition of trade guilds. March 10th. Pope Pius VI condemns the civil constitution of the clergy. April 2nd. Death of Mirabeau, first person to be buried in the Pantheon, formerly the Abbey of St. Genevieve. April 13th. Encyclical of Pope Pius VI Charitas, condemning the civil constitution of the clergy and the unauthorized appointment of bishops is published. April 18th. Louis and Marie Antoinette prevented from traveling to St. Cloud for Easter. June 14th. Le Chapelier Law 1791 banning trade unions is passed by National Assembly. June 20–25. Royal family's flight to Varennes. June 25th. Louis XVI forced to return to Paris. June 30th. Lafayette promoted to Lieutenant General. July 5th. Leopold II issues the Padua Circular calling on the royal houses of Europe to come to his brother-in-law, Louis XVI's aid. July 14th. Second anniversary of the fall of the Bastille is celebrated at the Champs de Mars. July 15th. National Assembly declares the king to be inviolable and he is reinstated. July 16th. Desmoulins appears before the Paris Commune at the head of a group petitioning for the deposition of the king. July 17th. Anti-royalist demonstration at the Champs de Mars. National Guard kills 50 people. Arrest warrants issued for Desmoulins and Danton, the latter fleeing to England. July. Remains of Enlightenment philosopher Voltaire buried in Pantheon. August 14th. Slave revolts in Saint-Domingue. April 18th. The National Guard disobeyed Lafayette and stopped the king from leaving for St. Cloud, where he planned to attend Mass. August 27th. Declaration of Pillnitz. September 1314. Louis XVI accepts the Constitution formally. September 30th. Dissolution of the National Constituent Assembly. Legislative Assembly. October 1st. Legislative Assembly meets. Many young, inexperienced, radical deputies. November 9, all émigrés are ordered by the Assembly to return under threat of death. November 11, Louis vetoes the ruling of the Assembly on émigrés and priests. December 14, Lafayette received command of one of the three armies, the Army of the Centre, based at Metz. 1792 January, March. Food riots in Paris. February 7. Alliance of Austria and Prussia. March 20. Guillotine adopted as official means of execution. April 20. France declares war against Austria. April 25. Battle Hymn of the Army of the Rhine, composed by Rouget de Lisle. First execution using the guillotine. April 28. France invades Austrian Netherlands. June 20. The people storm the Tuileries and confront the king. July 5. Legislative Assembly declares that the fatherland is in danger. July 25. Brunswick Manifesto warns that should the royal family be harmed by the popular movement, an exemplary and eternally memorable revenge will follow. June 28. Lafayette delivered a fiery speech before the Assembly denouncing the Jacobins and other radical groups and attempted to raise an armed mob. He was instead accused of deserting his troops, denounced by Robespierre, burned in effigy by mob. July 12. Lafayette transferred to Army of the North. July 30. Austria and Prussia begin invasion of France. July. The tricolour cockade made compulsory for men to wear. La Marseillaise sung by volunteers from Marseille on their arrival in Paris. August 1. News of the Brunswick Manifesto reaches Paris, interpreted as proof that Louis XVI has been collaborating with the foreign coalition. August 9. Revolutionary Commune takes possession of the Hôtel de Ville. August 10 to 13. Storming of the Tuileries Palace. Swiss Guard massacred. Louis XVI of France is arrested and taken into custody, along with his family. Georges Danton becomes Minister of Justice. August 14. Danton puts warrant out for the arrest of Lafayette. August 16. Paris Commune presents petition to the Legislative Assembly demanding the establishment of a revolutionary tribunal and summoning of a national convention. August 19. Lafayette flees to Austria. Invasion of France by coalition troops led by Duke of Brunswick. August 22. Royalist riots in Brittany, La Vendée and Dauphiné. September 3. Fall of Verdun to Brunswick's troops. September 3 to 7. The September massacres of prisoners in the Paris prisons. September 19. Dissolution of Legislative Assembly.